Hello! Algebra students, Mr. Lawrence here, and we're going to continue our exploration of graphing linear functions. Now, we learned this special form of y equals mx plus b called slope y-intercept form, right? Technically slope-intercept form, but I like to call it y-intercept form to help out my algebra students. All right, and we know that when y is alone, or f of x is alone, or g of x, or whatever the case may be, that our slope is the coefficient on x, and our y-intercept, it's by itself. It's either being added or subtracted. So I'd love for you to pause the video right now and see if you can correctly identify the slope and y-intercept of this equation. All right. Here comes my solution. Hopefully you've identified it. My y-intercept, my beginning, is going to be the origin. Yeah, the origin. Why? Because there's a plus 0 here. And I don't know if you realize this, but the y-intercept always has an x-coordinate of 0. Pick any point on the y-axis, is in the definition of y-intercept, the place where the line crosses the y-axis. Any point on here, like this one, that's the point 0, 10. Okay, this point down here is the point 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5. So no matter what point you're at on the y-axis, the x-coordinate is 0. Now, if you're a kid that gets these confused, that's unacceptable. I expect you to already know how to graph. You better get in for help. Too many of you are just content to go, I'm not going in for help. And you know what? Your grades are going to drop like stones this semester. Come on in for help. You got to close the gap in your learning. All right. So now the slope is going to be 6 over 1 because the 6 is attached to the x by multiplication. It's the coefficient on x. All right, so I'm going to plot the point 0, 0, which is the origin, and I'm going to rise 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 1. Now to get my third point, I'm going to think about the slope as negative 6 over negative 1, because those fractions would be equivalent, and I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then back 1. Okay, those fractions are the same. So I'm going to graph my line. There we go. Like to take up a good portion of that graph. I need arrowheads on both ends. I'm going to change the color so that it stands out a little bit better. I'll make it a little bit thinner and put an arrowhead on the other end. And then I'm going to go through that point there, and there we go. Okay, so here's another one. Again, pause the video, see if you can identify the slope and the y-intercept. Here comes my solution. The y-intercept, or b, is going to be the point 0, 3. Okay, my slope is going to be 0, or as a fraction, 0 over 1. How many x's do you see in this equation? I mean, that's a g of x, that's not an x. How many x's do you see? I see 0. I see the equation g of x equals 0x plus 3. Yeah, there's 0 x's in there. This 3 is not the slope because there's no variable after it. It's the y-intercept. So 0, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to rise 0, run 1. Rise 0, run 1. Rise 0, 1, run 1. Look at that, I got a horizontal line. So a horizontal line has 0 slope. Now, I got to warn you, 0 does not mean no. It means level. 0 does not mean no. Did you get that? 0 means level. So it has 0 slope because the fraction 0 over 1 would simplify to 0. This is a line with 0 slope. Have I said that enough times? Hey, Colton, were you listening? 0 slope, not no slope. They're not the same thing. Okay? All right, here we have an equation, h of x equals negative 2/5 x plus 1. I would love for you to actually graph this one this time instead of waiting for me to do it. You can write down your slope and y-intercept. I'm going to go right to the graph. Hopefully you've already graphed it. If you haven't, pause the video and graph it. All right, the y-intercept is 1. And the slope is -2/5. So I can think about it as -2 over +5, or I can think about it as 2 over -5. So I think I'm going to go down 2 and then write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I could go from the original point up 2 and back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would give me 3 nice points to graph with. Now, I don't know if you watch this, I'm going to cheat. I'm not really cheating. I'm just going to use the slope again. I'm going to go up 2 and then back 5 more. And that will help me get my line. All right. So, okay. There we go. It's a little bit inaccurate. I'll try to make it a little bit better. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. Trying to go through the centers of those points, the actual intersections. Okay, now, oops, that's the video quiz. I'm not ready for that yet. Got one more problem to do. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to try to identify the slope and y-intercept of this one. You can't do it. Can't do it. First of all, y is not alone. There is no y in the equation, right? It's not in slope-intercept form. Second of all, there is no slope. No, there is no slope. We can still graph this line, and we'll go ahead and do that, but you can't graph it. I'm sorry, you can graph it, but you can't find the slope of it. It can't be done. Now, some of you just said, oh, I'm going to find it, Mr. No, you're missing my point. Let me explain. Let's make a table here. What do you want x to be? Well, you don't have a choice. See, it says x equals 2. X must be 2 in this equation. So I'm going to find 3 points, but in each one of them, x has to be 2. Now, what do you want y to be? Pick one. Any one you want. Oh, was that 1? Sure, y can be 1. Now, Nick, are you paying attention to this? I need another y value, a different one. If I pick 1 again, I get the same point, and therefore I don't have 2 separate lines. Pick a different y. How do you know? Because you're told x has to be 2. Lines go forever, and therefore they can have any x value. They also can have any y value, y coordinate. But this line is special because the equation says x equals 2. That means x is always 2. Not sometimes, not when I want it to be, always. On the last one, not the last one, a couple ones ago, y equaled 3. G of x equaled 3, it's the same as saying y equals 3. Look at what my table would look like then. I've got x, I've got g of x. I need an x value. I'll pick 1. What's y? It has to be 3. How come? Because it says it equals 3. I need a different x, 2. What's y? It has to be 3. I need a different x, 27. What's y? 3. I don't care what you pick. In this equation, y is 3. But in this one we're doing here, x must be 2. Now, since lines go forever and can have any x coordinate or any y coordinate in the table, the x coordinate's ruled out. It must be 2 according to the equation, but the y coordinate can still be any value. So I'm going to put like -3 on. And then maybe for this one, I'll put 0. I'll plot these 3 points. I'll get the point 2, 1. I'll get the point 2, -3. And I'll get the point 2, 0. What kind of line am I getting? I'm getting a vertical line. Vertical line. If you hear some kind of dinosaur-like noises, that's my son playing with some Legos. I don't know if you can hear him. I hear him perfectly fine, but he's in the other room, actually. All right, so let's see here. There we go. That looks decent. Let's try to calculate our rise and run. Remember I told you there was no slope for this one? It's a vertical line. Vertical lines have no slope. Horizontal lines have 0 slope. Did you write that down? Did you make a flashcard? Did you? Vertical lines have no slope. Horizontal lines have 0 slope. Okay, let's call this point A, point B, and point C. Now let's figure out the slope from point A to point B. Okay, so my rise would be -1 because I'm going down 1. My run would be 0. Oh, what's this? It's undefined, right? We can't ever divide by 0. That's why there's no slope. Now, just to prove it's not a fluke or a coincidence, let's do the slope from A to C. Well, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a -4. My run is 0. What is it? It's undefined. Undefined. You can't divide by 0, ever. There is no slope. It's still a line. I can still graph it. It's not a function. It's not a function. It would fail the vertical line test, right? And I've got Sean going to McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's all at the same time. That's not possible. So it's not a function, but it is a linear equation and a relation. All right, now just one more. Slope from B to C, and that would be down 3 and the run of 0. And again, still undefined any way you slice it. Okay, so today we learned how to identify undefined slopes, and we learned the slopes of vertical lines and horizontal lines. All right, so here's your video quiz. What type of line has no slope? Why doesn't it have slope? And then number 2, you're going to graph the equation x equals 1 on graph paper, please. And number 3, graph y equals -3. By the way, if you don't have graph paper, you can print a sheet off internet. Just type in free graph paper, and you'll find a sheet and you can print it off. It's real cheap to go to the store and buy some. If you only need a sheet or 2, you can print some off. All right, that's it for the video quiz. Mr. Laurence signing off. Have a good night, everybody.